Hello, dear listeners. I'm your host, Genevieve Hopkins, and welcome to episode 12 of the Wheel and Cross podcast. What a lovely, sunny but cold week we had for Imbolc in my region this year. The early spring flowers are starting to bloom, and my household celebrated a quiet and happy Imbolc. On Imbolc Eve, July 31, the children and I walked to the local creek after school to play, while I collected a few rushes, overseen by our Biddy doll, a Ukrainian Matanka doll bought at one of this year's Christmas in July winter markets. Once home, we welcomed Biddy into the house, and I tried my hand at making my first Brigid's cross. Although it wasn't perfect and needed a few more rushes, it was a lovely and calming activity, and I'm happy to have it hanging on our front door for good luck. To continue the Imbolc celebrations, I made butter with delicious cream from our region, lit the candles, and cooked a dinner of sheep's feta quiche with seasonal herbs from the garden, topped off with delicious lemon juice and sugar-sprinkled crepes for dessert, an homage to my French heritage. Imbolc morning dawned bright and sunny, so according to legend, it seems we are in for a longer winter. The day was celebrated by enjoying turmeric scones with marmalade and homemade butter, hanging our orange slice decorations from Yule in the branches of our orchard trees, and bringing Biddy out with us into the garden, before putting her to bed with a lullaby that I sing to my children every night. I'm not going to sing it for you, but just imagine the tune of Hush-a-Bye Baby. Precious sweet baby, or Biddy, fast asleep, pixies and fairies watch to keep. Magical dreams dance in your head, safe and sound and snug in your bed. You can learn more about the origins of these Imbolc or Brigid's Day traditions in the previous episode, episode 11, The Spring Quickening, Jambari, Imbolc, Brigid's Day and Candlemas. This week we'll explore the European origins of Groundhog Day and its connection to Imbolc, or Brigid's Day weather divination. This podcast is free, but if you like my work and would like to support me so that I can continue doing it, please consider a paid subscription on the Wheel and Cross Substack page, www.wheelandcross.substack.com. If that is not possible and you enjoy this podcast, I would really appreciate your reviews on any of the podcasting platforms you use. Feel free to share this podcast and leave comments on the podcast page. Welcome to episode 12 of the Wheel and Cross podcast, Spring Weather Divination and Groundhog Day. As always, I would like to acknowledge the custodians of these lands on which I work and live in Australia's capital region, the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and I pay my deep respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations across Australia. Remember the 1993 film Groundhog Day? Weatherman Phil Connors, played by Bill Murray, is in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, to cover the annual celebration of Groundhog Day, but ends up being stuck living the same day over and over. It is an amusing film that brought the Groundhog Day tradition to the masses. The belief at the root of this tradition is that if a groundhog leaves its burrow on February 2, Candlemas, or August 2 in the Southern Hemisphere, and sees its shadow, then there will be 6 more weeks of winter. But if there is no shadow, spring will come early. In other words, if the weather is fine and sunny on February 2, expect the winter to last longer. And if the weather is cloudy, expect an early spring. The Groundhog Day tradition originated with the Pennsylvanian Dutch, who emigrated to America from German-speaking regions of Europe in the 17th to 19th centuries. Right across Europe, it was a common custom to predict the weather at Imbolc or Candlemas through the emergence of hibernating animals. Initially, the bear was used, but as bear numbers dwindled across Europe, other animals became popular, such as the fox, but more commonly, the badger. A German proverb states that if the badger is out of its den to sunbathe during Candlemas week, then winter will be 4 weeks longer. Now excuse my terrible German accent. Sonnt sich der Dach in der Lichtmannswoche, so geht auf 4 Wochen wieder zu Loche. If the badger sunbathes during Candlemas week, 4 more weeks he will be back in his hole. When European immigrants arrived in the Americas, they adapted their customs to the local environment. Thus, the tradition of the weather-predicting badger was adapted to a similar native animal, such as the ground hog, although marmots are used instead in Alaska and the Canadian province of Quebec. Many states and provinces have groundhog mascots that are kept specifically for the February weather prediction. In the USA, we have Queen Charlotte and Sir Walter Wally in North Carolina, Staten Island Chuck in New York, French Creek Freddy in West Virginia, General Beauregard Lee in Georgia, and of course Punxsutawney Phil in Pennsylvania. In Canada, we have Shubenacadie Sam in Nova Scotia, Weirton Willie in Ontario, Balzac Billy in Alberta, and Fred la Marmotte, or Fred the Marmot, in Quebec. Weather divination at this time of year was also common in the British Isles. It was connected to Candlemas traditions on February 2, or in pre-Christian folklore, it was connected to Imbolc or Brigid's Day on February 1. One old proverb says, "If Candlemas be fair and bright, winter will have another flight. If Candlemas be cloud and rain, winter will not come again." Badgers were often used for weather prediction in the British Isles, as were serpents. A Scottish Gaelic proverb says, "The serpent will come from the hole on the brown day of Brigid, though there should be 3 feet of snow on the flat surface of the ground." There is also an old folktale from Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and the Isle of Man, that Cailleach, the old hag of the land and winter goddess, gathers her firewood for the rest of winter at Imbolc. Legend has it that if she decided to make winter and the cold weather last longer, she would ensure a clear and sunny Imbolc day, allowing her to gather ample firewood. It was considered good luck for foul weather at Imbolc, as it meant that Cailleach was resting rather than gathering her firewood, and winter's end would be near. The weather for Imbolc in my region this year was sunny, if a little cool and blustery, which, according to folklore, indicates a long and cold winter. However, the land is bursting with early signs of spring, and the Weather Bureau predicts a shorter winter, leading into a brief spring and a long, dry summer. Their predictions weren't too accurate last year. Let's see what the weather brings in the next couple of months. I'll keep you posted. Next week, we'll explore the importance of the birch tree and its association with spring. Until then, I give you a Scottish blessing. Lang may your lum reek. Long may your chimney smoke. See you next week for episode 13, The Birch Tree, Symbol of Spring.